So I told you before, I've been to baseball games and stadiums. I've been in big stadiums for concerts. I've been in big arenas for things. And I always, like, this thought always goes through my head. Like, because I generally get seats that are very high up. I always think, if I threw a ball right now, how far could I throw it? You know what I'm saying?
I have definitely
Because I
thought
always
that too.
wonder, like, I feel like it's a legitimate thing. Like, because in my mind, I'm like, I could throw it all the way there. But then you're like, there's no way I could, like, it's a long way. Your depth perception, everything gets kind of messed with when you're up high and there's this angles and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like, I've always wondered, like, how far could I throw it? And I've always kind of thought that in different scenarios. Those are the specific ones. But in college one night, it was wintertime, and we were walking by the library, and there was this perfectly circular ice ball on the ground. It was like I think it came off some kind of like icicle or something. I don't really know how it formed exactly, but it was like this very round, like very hard, beefy ice chunk. And we were right by the library, and I thought, I'm going to see if I can throw this on the roof of the library. Like, that seems possible. It's a 3-story building. Wasn't that high, right? And I certainly can do this. I'm like, this is easy. And so me and Kirsten and somebody else are around. I don't know. And and it's dark out, but the library is still open. And on the 3rd floor we had the quiet floor is what they call it. Like, you were not allowed to speak. Like,
right
there, the whole library is quiet, but the 3rd floor is like the extra quiet, no noise floor, right? And there's big windows, panoramic windows at the front of the library. And so I'm standing in front of the library. It's dark outside, and I have this ice chunk in my hand. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. And so I throw it up, and in the way that it just seems right, I'm a clumsy guy. It kind of slips funny, and it just smacked the 3rd floor window.
Oh,
I was very, like, I literally said, this is so funny. I just looked at everyone and said, run! Because I thought I broke the window. Like, I mean, it was loud, okay? But it's a very funny story. Yeah, did nothing happen, but I'm sure I startled those people.
Oh, I bet. And on a similar note, it's crazy you tell me this, because I was talking with a friend recently, and my friend Leah was talking about her husband. When they were in college, he started a trend where they would take rotten fruit from the cafeteria, and there was a building on campus that had like a little bit of a divot in the roof, and they would throw them in what's called the fruit hole.
The fruit hole.
Yes, and it was the baseball team that would do this, so they were all very good at aiming, so they would just like throw rotten fruit into this spot, and I guess it would just probably rot up there.
Yeah, biodegrade animals and stuff.
And they like removed all fruit, I think, from the cafeteria for a while as a punishment.
No way.
Like, if you don't have fruit, you can't throw them in the fruit hole.
That's so funny.
So it seems like this is a college campus kind of thing.
Yeah, throwing stuff. Everyone likes throwing stuff, right? And that's something that I think must be integral to humanity or something. It must just be instinctual in us, because there's a British javelin thrower. He's actually an Olympic javelin thrower. His name's Ronald Broadstock, and he created a competition where anyone's welcome, and you just go and it's a competition to see who can throw random objects the farthest.
Okay.
And like, there's no limitation on these objects. And when I found out about this, again, it's like, of course that exists, but it's like on a slightly more official scale than not. It is actually called the Random Object Throwing Competition. And the most recent one was held in Cambridge in 2019. So I at least the most recent one I can find documentation for. I'm sure there are more, but I just would like to give you a hint at the categories.
Yes, I'm excited.
The Pringles throw. And I say throw, it's a Pringle. One Pringle. It's not a can of Pringles.
Wow.
And the distance, the winner in the Pringles throw for women, her name is Andrea Novoa Martinez. She threw it 6.75 meters. That seems like a very long way to throw a Pringle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I haven't seen videos. I'm not sure the technique you would use to throw a Pringle.
Like to catch the wind, right? And it sails.
Like use it like a paper airplane. I don't know, really, because I think is a meter 3.5-ish feet.
Oh, yeah, it's a little over 3. So
we're
that's
talking
18-ish
yeah,
feet.
We're talking 20 feet-ish.
Yeah.
That's a long way to throw a Pringle, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then we have the peanut throw. And the woman's world record there is 21.89 meters. Again, that seems like a long way to throw a peanut. I have never seen how far I can throw a peanut specifically, but that seems like a long way. We've got coconut toss, welly wang. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to look into it. and like the yoga mat throw. These are some of the
Rolled up or flat?
again, I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's see. The welly weighing distance is 22 meters, and the yoga mat throw is 30 meters. Yoga mat unofficial 4th round due to fast improving techniques. Oh, that's funny.
Wow. The
33 meters.
The community's evolving.
Yeah, people are figuring it out. But anyway, I don't know what it is, but it turns out there's, I guess, just something built into us that wants to know, like, how far can I throw this thing? And I know it's dumb, but it's just like, it really is kind of fascinating. Because, like, if you watch a professional baseball player throw the ball, you think, oh, that was a good throw.
Yeah.
I could probably do that. I mean, I'm not an athlete, but I always think I could probably do that. But then when you get in the position that they're in and the place they're in, and you realize, like, oh, there's no way I could do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing to see how good people are at this stuff.
Yeah.
Like people who have a great arm, people who can throw a football a really long way or whatever.
I played first base for several years, and I was one of the upperclassmen playing first base with underclassmen at the rest of the infield positions. And yeah, it takes a lot of skill to get the ball to me, and I had to practice just like digging him out of the dirt the whole time.
Yeah, it really is crazy. But again, I don't understand it. I can't comprehend it. I don't claim to know why, but it's just built into us.
You want to go into the backyard and throw some stuff? Welcome to the Factoid Podcast. You didn't ask for it, but we're going to tell you about it anyways. I'm Payton Gessel.
And I'm Chris Humphreys.
I think every middle school boy goes through a phase when they're in the locker room for the first time and they discover Axe body spray.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yes, I had several cans of Axe that I used in those years, and it was mostly because of peer pressure. Like, some kid bought it a couple months before I did, and I was like, oh man, I have to do this. I need to be a man at 14 and buy Axe. And like, I even remember the names of them. I had Phoenix, Kilo.
I had Kilo myself.
And then I would get like the Kilo deodorant and like synchronize it, so it's like I smelled like the same thing everywhere. And then like I eventually became like a real adult, and I would wear some fragrances here and there, but like it was mostly gifts that were given to me. So I think one year my parents got me Giorgio Armani Code, and like I wore that for several years until I used pretty much all of it. And then I think at some point someone gave me Mr. Burberry as a fragrance from obviously Burberry. And like once these gift scents would run out, I wouldn't really replace them. Usually I would get a gift from someone around the time and keep doing that. But like a few years ago, I ran out of that Mr. Burberry, and I didn't really replace it. I just would wear a little bit of deodorant, and that's kind of what I would do. And I realized at that point that I had never really stopped to consider what I wanted in a fragrance and what even was out there as a possibility. And that changed when Amy and I got dinner with our friends Jordan and Liz about a year ago. At some point, we were talking about Liz's job, and she works at one of the larger scented candle and other fragrance companies around the area. And part of her job is coming up with the fall fragrance line for the company. So there was one year where that we had heard that she was flown out to New York with several of her other coworkers, and they went and did a bunch of different fall activities. They would go and just do the things that like you think of as being like, this is what fall would smell like
a pumpkin patch,
an apple orchard, probably all of those things. Yes. And then they came back and they like would work with their team members and try to see like, well, which ingredients can we get in bulk enough that we can do a candle and a wallflower and whatever out of that. And then I remember the year after that, like, her husband would post a picture and be like, hey, here it is in stores. Like, this fall fragrance line came out partially because of her.
It's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I've learned a lot about fashion and taste in the last few months and just how this works, because I would consider that to be part of the fashion industry, like the idea of fragrances. And my basic understanding of that industry is that there are a select few people at the top that are the tastemakers, and they're the ones who decide like what is going to be cool and what the next big trend is. And then over time that trickles down to like the next level of people who care about fashion, and then the next level, and then the next level, and then like it finally gets to your average person is knows about this thing because it is just gotten into popular culture so much. And I watched the film The Devil Wears Prada recently. I was given that as a recommendation of really trying to understand how this idea works. And in that movie, have you seen it?
Yes, but I I'm seeming to think that like maybe I slept through it. Like I don't remember
Sure.
anything about it.
Yeah, I think it would have came out when we were in high school, but I mean, I watched it like a month or two ago. Really good. I really enjoyed that movie a lot. And Meryl Streep's character is like she's an executive at a fashion design magazine, and her assistant is Anne Hathaway, who does not care about fashion at all and is just trying to work this job for a year until she can get a better job somewhere else because this lady is known for being a good reference and can get you anywhere. And Anne Hathaway's character is making fun of like these people holding up two different belts that look like they're almost the exact same color, and she's like snickering. And Meryl Streep does this famous monologue where she says that like she like looks at Anne Hathaway's shirt and says that like you're wearing a shirt that's this color because several years ago this famous person decided that cerulean was going to be the color this year, and I wrote about it this year, and then it took several years until you went to a thrift store and picked out that shirt to wear. And the main idea of this was partially to belittle her in front of everybody,
Sure.
but to also say that no matter how much or how little you care about fashion, it influences all the decisions that you make in your life, even if you aren't conscious of it. And I think the fun part of fashion is to discover that trend slightly before other people do. And so, for example, I've been in a lot of seminars recently at work, and I was in the Type Trends Forecast live stream, a few weeks ago, and we were learning about basically what are the new cool fonts? How do we use fonts to do well and make them look good in the future? And at one point, this famous typographer person points out a design, and he says like, note the use of the font Megazoid on here. And this font is like, it hasn't been around for super long, but it's also the font we do for our podcast logo. And like at this moment, I was like, oh, wow, like I'm trendy, I guess. Like my clothes might not be trendy or whatever, but like my font is, I guess. But like, and you could argue that it was dumb luck that I chose it. I liked how the oid looked, and Megazoid was the name. Factoid. I thought like, yeah, I'll use that. And I joked with my coworkers that I should wear like a beret and scarf the rest of the day for that. But like, I don't say this to to brag. Like we were in other meetings as well. We had a color trends meeting a few weeks ago, and we learned about the fall 24 colors. In case you're wondering, it's muted primaries.
Muted primaries.
Yes, so like a kind of like a pale red, blue, and yellow.
Sure.
It's gonna help. It's gonna help conquer the loneliness epidemic, I think is what someone said at one point.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But like I say this just to say that there's a bit of a rush that you feel when you got to something a little bit early.
Mm-hmm.
So Liz is a little bit higher up on the chain than I am, quite considerably, I would say, with fragrances. So I had to take advantage of this when I was talking to her. So I picked her brain and I asked, what is the most expensive thing you have ever smelled? And she immediately said her answer was pure oud.
Oud?
Oud. Oud has been around for over 1,000 years in Asia. The first Western scent that popularized it was Balenciaga Pour Homme in 1990. And eventually enough fragrance companies would include notes of oud in their products. And, this happens over time. And then eventually I stumble into a mall in 2024 and I finally get to smell oud. It took a lot of trickling down for me to even discover it. So you're probably wondering what's oud.
I'm wondering what's oud.
Yeah, it's so fun to say though. Oud.
Oud. It does seem fancy.
Yes, spelled O-U-D often.
Oh, okay.
Oud is a piece of moldy wood.
Moldy wood.
Yep. More specifically, it's from trees in the genus Aquilaria when they excrete a resin as a defense mechanism when the ambrosia beetle infects them with the fungus Pheoacrimonium. So this beetle carries the fungus, burrows into the tree, puts the fungus into the tree. The tree, understandably, kind of freaks out, shoots the resin out, and then over time, as the resin is like, I think, trying to kill the fungus or the beetle, I don't know, probably both, that eventually that resin, it soaks into the wood and it changes the color of it. It makes the wood a lot darker, and the smell of the resin is very strong, but as it mixes with that wood, that it starts to take on like a more pleasant note to it. And sometimes this is referred to as agar wood, A-G-A-R wood, in some of the countries that it's found in, but Arab countries use the term oud, which means stick.
Stick.
Yes, and I guess that just caught on with the West, so that's what we call it here in America. And it makes sense that this is found in Asia, specifically in kind of tropical parts of Asia, because that's where all the good tastes and smells come from. And it's a survival adaptation for plants, is what I learned. Like strong scents on plants repel animals and keep them from eating it. And I've done some videos for like some product videos for animal repellents. And I think we're doing some more here soon. And what I learned about the ingredients of animal repellents is that they have to be food grade. That if an animal eats something with this on it, it has to like not get sick and die.
Yeah.
So they use ingredients like garlic, cloves, cinnamon, peppermint, cayenne pepper, like basically all the things in my spice rack.
Yeah.
They just that is what they use because animals, it keeps the animals away. And it's not very common in plants in like the northern, more temperate regions of the world. And like if you start to think about it, like vanilla comes from Madagascar, cinnamon comes from India, chilies are from Peru originally. And like these plants can grow other places. Like I grow basil and peppers in my backyard and like they survive. But they're not originally from there. So it shouldn't be a surprise that oud is from those tropical parts of Asia. And the resin has the strong smell. It's trying to kill the beetle and fungus, but it combines with the wood to make that signature scent. And speaking of signature scents, my friend Kyle recently told me that he was trying to find his signature scent. He knows a little bit more about fragrances than I do, and he's had some already, but yeah, wanted to find, I think the exact term he said was his signature scent. And that kicked off what I've been calling Scent Quest.
Scent Quest.
Yes. I made like a note like a year ago about Scent Quest and nothing happened until Kyle. So thank you, Kyle, for helping to spur this on. So we went to the mall and we got to try on a lot of samples and talk to a woman who was very knowledgeable about this process. I think her name was Diane. And I was able to bring several sample bottles with me that we're going to try smelling now.
Oh.
So I have 3 fragrance samples with me here today that we're going to smell. So we are first going to smell Red Tobacco by Montserrat.
Okay.
I guess before, as we get into this though, Chris, what's your experience with fragrances?
I too went through an Axe phase. Everyone did. Kilo was my scent. I had a couple more. I can't remember. I had like a special edition one that I wore a lot, but everyone kind of wore it. Church camp, locker room, everywhere you go, and everyone had their own ways to do it. But how I generally did it was I just put a nice X on my body. And I do actually want to say it's so funny because even before I knew anyone who used it, when I stumbled across Axe in like the aisle at the store, the marketing was so good. Like I was immediately like, that's cool. But in my head, I was like a kid. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to think that's cool or not, but that seems like a cool brand.
Oh, edgy. Yeah, for sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, I had Axe. I used to wear, my favorite cologne that I had growing up was Abercrombie and Fitch Fierce. It had a guy with abs on the front of it.
And you said I can have abs. If
I can be just like, and it smelled really good.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not. To be honest, I just don't. Like I have some scents. I don't wear them very often. It's not. I would like to. In fact, I even will comment on someone who I'm like, oh wow, you smell good. I just did that recently with my friend. His name's Colton, and I was like, man, you smell good. What is that? He goes, oh, it's Sauvage by Dior. And I was like,
that's fun. I was reading about Sauvage. Yeah,
and it smells good. That smells good too. Whatever I'm smelling.
And it's funny because I have this card like 6 feet away from you, so I'm gonna spray less on the next.
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I can smell it for sure.
Yes. So this is Red Tobacco by Montserrat. And this,
when you get it closer, there are more notes to it.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that because I was about to say that I learned a little bit about the techniques. So specifically, you mentioned about how to apply it to yourself and just how you smell different things. So there is a concept in the fragrance world called the note pyramid, and the note pyramid is 3 different levels of how long certain smells last and kind of as it evolves over time what you smell. So at the top you have the head notes. So these are the ones that are going to last the least amount of time. So that's maybe like the first few minutes after application. And then you have the heart notes. So that might be like 30 minutes to an hour or so after you apply it. And then at the bottom you have the base notes. And oud is almost always a base note. So these are the ones that several hours later you are still smelling this, and it's the part that lingers the most, which kind of arguably makes the base notes the most important. And the X is really funny, and that makes sense. Like that's probably something I've done at some point. I asked Diane and Kyle, I said like, when I'm trying this stuff on, how much do I spray? And the lady says, Oh, that's a really personal question. At first I thought like I offended her, but she meant like everyone has a different
Yeah.
amount. But I was like, but like tell me that, like how much am I supposed to put on me? Like I don't know. Is it 1? Is it 25? But like
Well, I can tell you that and you know this too, when you're in a public place,
mhm.
you can tell what's like that, like from 10 feet away, you're like, oh, that person wears more cologne than I do. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like, and it's not always it's not a bad thing. You know what I mean? But you can be like, oh yeah, they wear a lot of cologne. Like I can smell that.
Absolutely.
Can I smell the paper with nothing on it?
Yeah.
Just because I want to know how much of this is paper and how much of it is.
Well, these were all sprayed like a month ago.
Okay, so what I'm going to say here is this red tobacco one.
Yes.
It smells like tobacco.
Mhm.
Like, but it, like when I smelled it from 6 feet away, it didn't smell like tobacco. It just smelled like fragrance.
Yeah.
But when you smell this paper, it's like, oh, it's very shocking, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that one smelled the sweetest, I think, out of the ones.
It smells good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then next up we have Oud Amazing by Montal.
Oud Amazing.
And because we can't smell pure oud like Liz did, this is me trying to give us like some notes that maybe oud is in so that both of us can kind of triangulate possibly.
It smells good.
Yeah.
I don't know. This one smells, in my mind, less cologne-y, more like I took a shower. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't mean it in a bad way.
Less cologne, more baloney. That's what came into my mind there.
Less cologne, more baloney. But it smells like less like I'm wearing a fragrance, more like I just am very clean.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. But almost as if I showered in a hair salon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like it has a fancier note to it than just my body wash. But
Yes.
It smells good. I like it. It's different. It's very different. It's different. It's very different than the last one.
Okay, and the last one we have here is the cream of the crop. I had to actually go back to the store today to get this because they didn't have enough for me to take a sample when I went before, and the lady just like sprayed it on my jacket and said like, "Here's a couple sprays. Like, have your wife smell this when you get home, and hopefully like she can tell by that." But I was able to go back and. Which these are all free samples. I'm surprised that they would give this.
It seems like that's what I'm thinking. It seems like not a terrible amount of.
Yes, like if
cologne.
I was trying to run some,
you could wear this a couple days.
Yeah, and the goal is that you can wear it several days to like really get the feel on that. So here is Creed Royal Oud.
Creed Royal Oud. Very different.
Yeah.
It's earthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first time I smelled it, I don't know if I was into it, but the more I smell it, the more I like it.
Yes, and that was my takeaway as well, where like it smelled earthier, and it was, you know, it was the one that I enjoyed the most as well. Trying to pull up the notes here.
I feel like I'm smelling, like I feel like I'm sitting in a fancy car next to a wealthy person. Seriously, that's what it feels like.
Absolutely.
It is like, wow, like if you ever happened to. I worked at a car dealership.
Oh yeah, I bet you had people that smelled.
And I would randomly, like, a guy would come in to trade in their vehicle, and they'd be like, "Hey, can you take my vehicle or whatever?" Like, and so they'd trade this thing in, and they would trade in this, you know, 90,000 whatever, like this crazy vehicle, and they're getting something, and like that's kind of what I feel like I'm smelling like the guy just got out, and I'm driving his car away.
Absolutely. You know, that is a great explanation. And it makes sense because so Kyle works in the auto industry, and he's like, it's like that and watches, he said, are like, these are the things that, you know, that you notice a lot by people in that, you know, who care about, you know, buying nice cars. And I think this whole scent quest so far has really highlighted to me how silly the fragrance industry is. Like, have you seen any of those like bizarre commercials that they do?
Well, I only, when my friend told me he has Sauvage Dior or whatever, I watched the commercial with Johnny Depp in it.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, oh, okay. You know, it's like, I don't really watch a whole lot of commercials, so that's the one that like comes to mind when I think about it. But yeah.
There was one a couple of years ago where Adam Driver was a centaur. Like they just made like a CGI centaur body for him, and he like emerges from the water. I think he goes into the water as a human and then comes out as a centaur. But like, the message of a lot of the commercials, like they have this weird monologue and then they show a logo because like you can't smell the commercial. That's the tough part. Is like how do you get this across? So the formula they normally use is you're sad and single without eau de sauvage, but with it like the ladies will flock to you basically. And like even Old Spice and Axe body spray, like these are smells of the people, but they still have the exact same strategy of like you're gonna die alone if you don't buy, Tom Ford Black Orchid or Versace Eros or whatever. And in the fragrance industry, there's a lot of pretending to be something you're not. And I've watched a lot of reviews and I watched a lot of YouTubers in, that follow, the fragrance industry. And I'd say they're the kind of guys that you would think probably would be into this stuff. But like, they sell fragrances. And like some of them will even partner and have sponsored fragrances. And one of the guys that I found, he sells fragrances that are meant for scent conditioning. So like instead of just like hinting that you'll feel this way when you smell this thing, no, this brand just has a fragrance called Confidence. And you spray confidence on you when you want to feel confident. And you only spray yourself with that when you want to feel confident. And you allegedly train your brain to say, I'm going to be confident because I sprayed a little liquid on me, like liquid courage, I guess. But like the lengths that men will go to just to not be in touch with their feelings, it astounds me sometimes. I gave a speech at a high school recently and it was, a couple of classes and that was something that like I needed a little bit of courage to do. I haven't done that before. And instead of spraying myself with courage to be courageous, I just studied, like I practiced my speech. I wrote notes down. I got a good night's sleep and got breakfast. And I think that like, there may be some sort of small amount of science to this or whatever, but it just seems like a very silly like facade that you're putting on instead of just saying, I'm going to have confidence. So like right as I'm, watching these videos, I feel immune to all of these dumb self-esteem tricks. Like I'm not going to die alone. I'm married. Like, none of these marketing tricks work on me, I thought. But then Amy comes home and I've got like the Royal Oud sprayed on the jacket. And I'm so excited because I've been smelling this all day. And I'm like, this is my favorite. This is the best thing I've probably ever smelled, at least out of fragrances. So I have her smell the jacket. She takes a few whiffs and says, that doesn't smell like you. And I am just rejected. I am crushed.
You're just not an oud man.
And then like, I'm like, well, smell this oud one too. Smell this one. And she's like, oh no, this is even worse. And, I thought that, I realized that I was no better than all these scent conditioning bros who were trying to be something that they weren't and tried to use this fragrance to make me cooler, than, what I thought I currently was. So just like the note pyramid though, Amy's opinion on oud has developed with time. So when she had that first smell, she did not like it, said it doesn't smell like you. And then about a week later, I asked her, hey, how about you try and smell it again? And, she said, well, maybe that's not that bad. You should try to get a sample fragrance of that. And we can, compare it to one of the other ones. So like, I'm not getting my hopes up too much. I'm still expecting that we'll go with the Creed Silver Mountain Water, which I do like it, but there is no oud in it at all. But there's the slightest little chance that I'm going to walk out of the mall as an oud boy.
So, Payton, growing up, did you and your family, did you guys go on vacation at all?
Yep. We would go to same place almost every single year, Sanibel Island, Florida. We went out west one year. But yeah, it's pretty much same thing every time.
Yeah. So we did the same thing. We went on vacation. We basically went on vacation every year. We never did anything super extravagant. We never went on a cruise or went overseas. And we didn't go the same place every single time. But for the most part, for a majority of my growing up years, we went the same place. I grew up in Illinois. We would go just 3 hours to the west, and we would go to St. Louis, Missouri. And we would stay in a hotel, and we often stayed in the same hotel. I had a pool inside, pool outside. That was always fun for young families. Pools. We would go to Cardinals baseball games. We would go to the zoo. We would just do the touristy things, go to the good food places. They have like frozen custard all around St. Louis. It was always fun to eat.
Do they have the weird pizza? Isn't St. Louis pizza like there's a special type of cheese or something that they put on it?
I know what you're talking about. But we never did pizza really. I don't think in
Okay.
St. Louis. If
I
I
mean,
remember
barbecue's
right.
probably better.
Yeah, like St. Louis style ribs and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we did a lot of different food places, all kinds of them. One thing that we did pretty much every time is we would go to Six Flags St. Louis, specifically, and it was a blast. They have a water park. They have all kinds of rides. Have you ever been?
I have not. My roller coaster experience in just amusement parks, it's pretty pitiful, honestly. I get a little bit of motion sickness, and I get that from my dad. He has it a lot worse than me. But I went to Cedar Point with my brother and his family right around Amy and I started dating because she enjoys a thrill ride. She loves spinning in circles, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I'll say it's pretty embarrassing when you're on a ride with a roller coaster and you're the one who's freaking out, and the 10-year-old next to you
is like woohoo.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then when the 10-year-old's my nephew, who's also known for being like really introverted and timid,
Uh-huh.
and like he's the one just letting loose, having fun. And I'm
Right.
like, I'm gonna die. It was embarrassing. So I'd say like I've been on several roller coasters,
Sure.
but it is not my thing.
And it is funny you say that your roller coaster experience is like so bad because most people, I mean, Cedar Point is like the best place in America for roller
Oh yeah,
coasters.
no, we're spoiled.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, and that's, I've actually still never been to Cedar Point. But it's like, it's the best. They have like all the roller coast, I think is what they call it.
Yeah.
At Cedar Point. But yeah, I went to amusement parks. This is a lot of my childhood. Like I said, I don't know how many times, but I'm pretty sure. I don't think I'm making out. I think we basically went to St. Louis most every year, and most every year we went to Six Flags, and maybe not every time. I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think we would do like summer reading club at the library as a kid, and if you read enough books, they would give you like free tickets.
right. Yeah,
And when we would just like cash those in, and my parents would go. My dad always really liked riding roller coasters, and my mom she didn't like roller coasters, but she liked the other, the shows and some of the other water rides and all that stuff.
there's stuff for everyone.
Yeah, there is. There's stuff for everybody. It's a lot of fun to go to a place like that. I still enjoy it. Haven't been to an amusement park in a while, but and then water parks, those are always very fun. We did this basically every year, and when I was young, I didn't ride the roller coasters. I was too small, right? When you're
Right.
too small, you don't ride them. But then when I got big enough, I was like, I don't know if that's my thing. I'm kind of a scaredy cat still to this day. I'm kind of a little bit of a, I'm just scared, right?
It's okay. It's okay that we're wusses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the older I got, I was like, maybe I should do it. I don't know. I don't know. And then one year we went to Six Flags St. Louis with my best friend and his family. They came with us. And I like sort of like my best friend's brother. He was older than us, 3 years maybe. And I always kind of looked up to him. I thought he was cool and wanted to be like him. And he loved roller coasters. And so my best friend's brothers and my dad, they would go around and ride all the roller coasters. And they're like, you should ride with us. Because I was old enough, I was big enough, I could do it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of scared. But they convinced me. And I was terrified. But it turns out I loved it. It was super fun. And I started on one of the smaller wooden, not crazy roller coasters, but I really liked it. And they're like, well, you should go on the Batman with me. The Batman is the one like where your feet dangle and there's loop-de-loops and stuff.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like, oh, that's way different. Like, oh no, you can't even tell you're upside down. I was like, oh, okay. And I believe everything they say, right? You could tell you're upside down. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
You can tell. However, I did think it was very fun. It was funny. I was short. I was very short most of my life.
I had no idea. Really?
Yeah, I was 5'4" until I was 17.
What?
Yeah, isn't that weird? I'm 6 foot tall, for those of you guys who are wondering. I grew from 5'4" to 5'11" my junior year of high school. Like that fast. It was crazy. But I'm 6 foot tall now. But yeah, I was short most of my life. And so when I rode the Batman the first time, it had one of those harnesses that like come over your head, and they have like, it's like big shoulder, like,
Yeah.
like hard rubber shoulder pads, right?
I did one of those, like the Raptor or
yeah,
something.
and
Yeah.
I was short enough that my head just banged in between them over and over again. Like when you go over a turn or take whatever,
Oh,
right?
man.
And so I remember being like, oh, that wasn't great. But I had a blast. I loved it. And so I ended up that day riding with my dad and my friends' brothers, Nick and Joe were their names, or maybe it was just Nick. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who was there. But I remember I rode all of them, all the roller coasters. It was a blast. And I loved all of them. And so from that point on, from that vacation on, I would just ride them with my dad as well. But one thing that happened on one of our family vacations that I actually spoke to my dad about, my family visited a few weeks ago. I talked to my dad about it because I was like, Dad, I remember this story. Is this true? Like, I want to know, like, am I making this up? because I want to tell people about it, but I don't want to be lying. And he's like, no, that's very true. And one vacation, he had read about it. It lined up perfectly. We were going to St. Louis, as we always did. So one day, and this would have been before my time of actually riding roller coasters with my dad. This is when I was younger. And how that would work was my dad, we'd split up pretty much immediately. My dad would go ride the things he wanted to do. Because sometimes, depends on the day, depends on the weather, depends on the lines. Sometimes it might take all day for you to ride all of them. Mm-hmm. My mom, my sister, and I, we would go ride the other things that we all wanted to ride. You know, the stuff more for the easy goers, right? The softies, you know,
sure.
The log ride with the water, and we'd go see the shows, and we'd get the fun drinks or whatever. But this day, my dad was extra excited because he wanted to ride the Boss, which was the new and exciting ride. But he had also read that there was going to be a man there, Richard Rodriguez, who was there to break a world record, and he was going to ride the Boss from open to close 100 days in a row.
Okay, I thought you were just going to say open
to
close.
From open to close 100 days in a row. And we happened to be there. I can't remember. My dad told me we were in there like at least a few weeks after he had started. So this guy had been doing it. And my dad was like, I wanted to sit as close to him as possible so I could maybe get a chance to talk to him. And he did. He sat right behind him as far as I remember. And he just like had conversations and asked the guy questions. And Richard Rodriguez turns out is kind of a fascinating guy. He, like I said, his goal to break this world record of riding a roller coaster consecutive days all day. So like literally from open to close. And how the record works is, at least for the standards for the Guinness Book of World Records, is you get 5 minutes of break per hour ride time. So he would kind of wait. Yes. He would kind of save those up so he could get like an hour break to, you know, shower and eat dinner and like go to the bathroom and stuff like that.
Funny enough, there's like an influencer I follow who has done some roller coaster related world record rides as well, and he's done some other like world records. And yes, I know like they give you bathroom breaks and things like that for sure.
And they have there are, I couldn't figure out, I actually couldn't find it exactly, but like in 2007 they changed 2007 I think, or 2007 I think, they changed some of the rules like in the stipulations of like exactly how long you get to ride and the spaces in between it, which actually made like some previous world records not count, and some anyway. So they changed some stuff like that. And I don't know what got changed and what it got changed to. But basically, as he's riding at this point, you get 5 minutes break every hour. So we're talking like, I don't know how long an open day of Six Flags is. Let's say 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 12 hours probably.
Yeah.
So he's going to be riding, 10 and a half hours a day for 100 days in a row. Pretty insane. But my dad got to talk to him, and this guy lives in New York. It was just kind of his thing. And I'm pretty sure he told me he's like sitting on a pillow. He's got like he might even had a neck brace on. Like he's prepared for this.
Oh yeah, you have to.
And he doesn't get off the ride. Like he stays there literally all day. He just rides over and over and over again. And what's crazy is you've ridden roller coasters before.
Yes.
I've ridden roller coasters before. This is a wooden roller coaster, one of the biggest and most insane ones at the time. And it's still big. If it's still open, I don't know. I'm sure it probably is, but it's still a very big, very rough ride. And I haven't ridden a roller coaster in a few years. I haven't been in an amusement park in a few years. I love them. I love wooden roller coasters. I think they're a blast. But even as a young kid, they hurt your body so much. Like you go on at one time, you get jostled, your head hurts, you knock your teeth together, you bite your tongue, you get bugs flying in your face. Your body hurts because these things like jostle you and shake you and move you. It's crazy. So the fact that, number one, that he could do it for a day, that he could do it over and over again, but that someone would have the desire to, or the ability to ride this roller coaster all day for 100 days is insane.
What's this guy's job?
Well, see, that's what's interesting, is it works perfectly because he's a roller coaster enthusiast by night, but by day, he's a teacher. So he has all summer off every summer.
That makes sense.
And so he's going from May 3rd of 2001 to August 10th of 2001. So basically, as soon as school ends for him to as soon as school starts for him, he rode this roller coaster every day. I mean, like it's pretty insane because you wonder, like you said, what's his job? Who's got the time for this? Who's got the money for this? I can only assume there's an arrangement where he didn't have to pay to get in every day.
Yes.
I don't know that that's true, but knowing that he's a teacher, I can't imagine you would pay the $30. Maybe it's $30 or $40 at the time.
He's
$30.
He's reading all those books.
Right. In fact, you know what's funny is, I think my dad said he was reading a book on the roller coaster.
Oh, man.
Isn't that crazy?
I suppose you just adapt, right?
I guess so. Because the thing is, you're going to get used. That's the thing. Have you ever been to Kings Island in
No.
Cincinnati?
I mean, I'm obviously familiar with it, but
Right.
no.
When we didn't go to St. Louis, we would sometimes come to Cincinnati for vacation. And we would go to the zoo, whatever, go to Kings Island. There's a roller coaster called the Beast at Kings Island. It's like the longest wooden roller coaster in the world. It's pretty cool. It's from the 70s. It's still there. Very fun. But my dad and I rode that like 9 times in a row one day, like where you get off, you go around, you ride it again because it wasn't busy. And I remember like the first few times it was like, oh, you have to figure it out. But the next, like, you know exactly what's coming when it's coming. You get used to it.
Yeah.
Your body kind of knows where to turn and how to flex and how to like hold yourself.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm sure you get used to it. But again, there's something that's got to do something to your body. But if you look into this guy, Richard Rodriguez, it turns out that in 2001, riding the boss for 100 days isn't the only time he's ever done something like this. Nor is it even the most impressive. His career spans from 1977, he's born in the 50s, so this is in his early, I think 18 or 20, in Coney Island, to 2007 in England. And he has broken records in Germany, Canada, England, and the USA. And I'm just going to read to you. I'm just going to speed read. I'm probably not going to go through them all because there are 18. 1977, Coney Island Cyclone, 104 hours in a row. Okay, that's his first record. 78, Swamp Fox in the USA, 110 hours. So these are marathon rides. And when they're hours in a row, that means consecutive hours. Okay, then there are some that are days. That means all day during that day. Rebel Yell, USA, 124 hours. Roaring Tiger, 128 hours. Big Dipper, 140 hours. Ghost Town Coaster, 150 hours. P&E Flyer, 168 hours. These are all in the 70s. Okay, so he's upping it every single time.
Yeah.
Let's just skip down. There's plenty more. 1994, Big Dipper, 549 hours. He's kind of stepping up his game. But wait, 1998, took a 4-year break apparently from his world records, but it gets better. Big Dipper again, 1,000 hours. 2000, Big Dipper again, 2,000 hours. Yeah. I know. 2001, to my dad, The Boss, USA, 100 days. And it goes all the way up 2007. He did the big one and the Big Dipper for 2,000 hours. So basically, this guy just spends apparently pretty much every summer, and obviously that's not every summer, but pretty much every summer, doing some ridiculous thing to his body, riding roller coasters all day, every day. It's like his thing. He's like, I'm pretty sure they call him the roller coaster king.
Wow.
Is that insane or what?
Yeah, I was thinking about like what's the old like Malcolm Gladwell thing about like you need to spend 10,000 hours to become an expert in something.
He's much more than an expert.
Yes, definitely an expert in riding
That's
roller
right.
coasters.
And on a lot of these trips, it turns out he had like at least some of them, at least at the beginning and as it continued, he had medical company assisting him with this, right? He had people come to like check his vitals to make sure everything's okay. And they would check him for various things. And what's funny, the only Wikipedia page that you can find for this specific person is in German. And so I translated this Wikipedia page. But according to that, there's a section titled Medical Research. And it says that Richard Rodriguez specifically is particularly well suited for this because he has a specific ability that very few people have to have a stable reaction pattern and because of his autonomic nervous system. I don't know what that means necessarily. I don't know if it's a perfect translation either because this translated the page for me. But from what I understand, it basically means that he has a body that for some reason doesn't take as much damage by doing this. Like that he's able to like anticipate and his body's able to like just prepare for this stuff better than most people.
100 years ago, we sent them to war, and now we send them to roller coasters.
Like this man has
like,
somehow perfectly evolved into the perfect roller coaster riding machine. Yes. Like I said, I've ridden roller coasters. It is not easy on your body. So even though he's perfectly engineered to be this type of person, I can't imagine it's really that fun for him. But apparently it's fun enough to do 18 times for a world record. And I don't know, he hasn't been as super active lately. It seems like there's a little bit of talk that happened maybe in like 2017, 2018 time. He's still around. People still talk about him. He's got plaques and he's got awards and he's got Guinness Book of World Records. He's got all this stuff and it's pretty cool. It's a really interesting story. But I just kind of loved reading about this guy because it turns out, just like my dad, there were like hundreds and hundreds of people who heard about what he was doing when he was doing it and the specific places he was doing it. And they did exactly what my dad did. And they went to the park and they rode the ride with him, and they talked to him, and they asked him questions. And you can find countless forum posts of people saying like, hey, met Richard Rodriguez today, talked about him, he's on day 47, like whatever. Like, and people did this, and like, it turns out it's not just my dad, right? I felt like it was a super special thing, and it is. It's like,
Right.
and to my dad, I think it's like a memorable time, because when I asked him about it, he remembered. He's like, that guy's name was Richard Rodriguez.
Wow.
Like, I
Yeah.
remember.
A core memory.
And yeah, he like remembers all this stuff about it. And I think it's cool because it's like a public thing. He's not doing this alone. He's not riding this ride by himself with no one around. It's this thing that like the public can partake in. It sort of feels like you get to do it along with him, even though, no, you're not doing it, right? But you were a part of that thing happening. And I wasn't even there, but I feel sort of connected because of like my dad's experience. And then I was there that day. And then hearing about my dad talk about it again is just kind of like, what a cool thing that is.
We are all record holders.
We're all record holders because of this, because of my dad's one roller coaster ride with this guy this day. And it really, there's like a special connection to it. I don't understand it, but I think it's just really cool. And there's a lot of things in life that bring people together, but this definitely might be the most factoid one I've read about it in a while.
Thank you for listening to the Factoid Podcast. If you have a factoid that you want to share with us, just send us an email at whatsyours@factoidpodcast.com.
You can listen to us everywhere you listen to podcasts, or you can find us at our website, factoidpodcast.com.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.